So after one serious cinematic intro, I give you one serious motorcycle, the Kawasaki Z900. My love for Japanese performance started with Honda Civic Type Rs and Honda S2000s. It's a raw driving experience. No traction control, no stability control. You get what you drive and you get the reaction from the way you drive. And this is my first experience with two wheels of Japanese performance. So 2019 Kawasaki Z900. If you're a proper rider and you know what to do with this throttle right here, you can extract some amazing experiences out of this machine. At the heart of the Z900, 948cc engine, producing 125 horsepower and 98 Newton meters of torque. 4-cylinder, and it's my first experience on a 4-cylinder performance Japanese motorcycle, and I'm absolutely astounded. The bottom end torque from under 6,000 RPM when you're cruising around the city is amazing, and once it goes over 6, the red line runs till about 10k, and it's absolutely amazing. I must say, one of the nicest design pieces that I like is the intake. When you're sitting on top of the motorcycle, you really just see these intakes just gulping in all that air. And I know that in the design of the motorcycle, they've actually custom made the intakes to give it a nice growling sound. So when you get on it, just on 6,000 RPM, it gives it a nice induction sound, something like your old Japanese performance cars. It's a really nice touch, but the engine, absolutely phenomenal. In terms of lighting, you've got this massive headlight on the front, and it's a big design feature on the motorcycle, giving it that super aggressive look. No LEDs, this is halogen, but not an issue, works perfect night or day. You've got the indicators located just above it, kind of gives it that pulled back look, so just adds to the overall aggression of the motorcycle. My personal preference, I'd probably try and tidy these up at a later stage if this was my motorcycle, but not a biggie. A nice design feature is at the back, they've incorporated the Z logo in terms of putting the lights together to look like the Z that's on the front of the tank. And then the same indicators are repeated at the back, once again just begging for a tail tidy. Suspension, brakes and tires. We're in the brakes department up front, 4-pot Nissan caliper, double discs up front, great stopping power. Tires, it's running the Dunlop Sport Max. I don't know if it's maybe that the tire pressure was a little bit hard or that they're still new, but I found the tires a little bit harsh on the road, quite a bit of vibrations coming up. The suspension, upside down forks, dampening and setup is really great for town driving and when you start carving through the twisties. It's dampening and rebound adjustable at the front. Around the rear, single disc setup also with the Nissan caliper. You got spring pre-tension, a dampening and rebound adjustment on the rear shock, and then the Dunlop Max also on the rear. So in terms of handling, the bike is like a scalpel. It weighs next to nothing, 210 kilograms, so lightweight, coupled with a great suspension and brakes, means that you could cut every apex with not a worry in the world. So, climbing on the Z900, the first things that your hands are going to grab is the handlebars. It's a nice wide setup which makes cornering really great, and also commuting because you've got a nice upright riding position. Not too upright, you're slightly more sporty than most nakeds I've ridden, but not to an extent that it feels like you're wrangling with clip-ons. So slightly more forward, but still very comfortable. Clutch operation, nice and easy, slightly assisted. You've got an adjustable clutch and brake lever. The throttle, not overly sensitive, but just enough that you can control it no matter the conditions you're riding. And then the dash, it's Japanese, does what it needs to do. Great in low light, also great with direct sunlight, so I have absolutely no gripes for that. And then just my personal preference is, this is your standard kind of motorcycle review mirrors. Doesn't always work for me because of my shoulders, but I think if it was my motorcycle, I'd probably opt for a set of clip-ons, but once again, that's just my personal preference. Seating position on the bike, super comfortable. You're really down low into the bike, so you feel like you're one with the machine. Speaking of seating, the seat padding a little bit on the hard side for me, something I would change out on the aftermarket, but once again, not a deal breaker. And then something else that I felt could slightly be improved is the gear lever position. So it feels like I really need to extend my foot just to bounce through the gears, but that could be just a one screw loose, a little bit of adjustment, and it sorts out that problem. And now down to the styling and the look of the Z900. And with most naked bikes, it's personal preference when it comes down to it. It's got a super aggressive styling up front. It's got that praying mantis kind of look, which most aggressive naked superbikes generally have. A lot of cues to the Z heritage. You got the Z in the intake, obviously the Z decals on the side or emblem, and then in the rear, as mentioned, with the rear light, you got that Z that the LEDs make. It all kind of ties everything together. The front of the headlight piece, super aggressive. I really love this color combination, the Kawasaki green with the matte silver and the matte gunmetal on the trellis. It just kind of pops, gives it that all-round great aggressive look. So my final thoughts on the Z900. This is a great all-round machine, whether you're commuting and going for the odd breakfast run with your mates, no problem at all. I would suggest having a look at the seat because it could get a little bit uncomfortable on longer rides, but nothing that can't be remedied. If you're a novice, I would suggest starting out with something a little smaller and working your way up. But if you're an intermediate to experienced rider looking for a more analog experience, then this Z900 is something you need to look at.